introduce our first speaker for today, Ottar A.B, presenting Trust and Authenticity for Digital Collections with IIIF.
Thank you, and good morning. So I'm head of photography at the Intermunicipal archive back in Møre, Romsdal in Norway. And I'm also one of the founding members of the Digital Project Authenticity Working Group. And today I'm present this Trust and Authenticity for Digital Collections. I would like to thank the program committee for accepting our call for proposals, and also the local planning committee here in Leeds for the contribution for this year's conference. I would also like to thank my co-author Julie McGuire at the National Geographic Society Special Collections in the US. So here I've outlined the agenda for this presentation, starting with the future of content authenticity in IIIF, why you should care, and we'll try to look into some potential future scenario. Some on the work we've done in the working group, and also our progress so far. It's briefly touch into some of the use cases, and lastly the projects need the input from the community here today. So why you should care? As trust and authenticity increasingly becomes a concern for all kinds of digital media content, as for our digital collections published online, truth is no longer necessarily taken as one. Content providers and content users are in need of tools to help them to navigate in this increasingly uncertain digital environment. We believe that by displaying metadata that represents information about the creation of the digital object, as well as verification methods for ensuring that the digital object is true to the original, the content provider can establish the needed provenance for the end user to trust the content. The existing IIIF's API's architecture would serve as a perfect platform for displaying these needed metadata. As the well-established and preferred framework for cultural heritage institutions through its community-driven development, you should care because you're part of it. And here I will present some of the work in the Digital Object Authenticity Working Group. It was established last year in 2024 as an independent working group formed between professionals from archive and hardware and software vendors. The goal of the working group is to address the significant gaps and challenges in metadata practices for cultural heritage digital surrogates. The working group's plan is to address these gaps with the use of the International Press Telecommunication Council, IPTC, photo metadata standard, in conjunction with the ISO 19264 standard, and the tools developed by the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. By integrating these widely used standards and specifications, institutions can more easily share their reliably access complete and accurate information. The IIIF framework is a key component as the front end. So it's a bit about the progress so far. The Content Authenticity Initiative and Content Credential, shown here with in the middle, the icon. Maybe some of you have seen it used in open press media platforms. It's creating a secure end-to-end system for digital content provenance with an open source tools and a cross-industry community of adapters. We have established an open communication and gotten fully aware of our GLAM community, our sector-specific concerns and needs. Authenticity for cultural heritage digital objects through image, process, quality metadata are one of the key components of the digital object authenticity. The IPTC mission is to simplify the distribution of information. They develop and promote efficient technical standards to improve the management and exchange of information between content providers and consumers. So the history of the IPTC is also from the free media press. IPTC is committed to open standards and make them freely available to a wider community. It's founded in 1965 and based in London, here in UK. The IPTC brings together the world's leading news agency, publisher, and industry vendors. We have established contact with their working group, the Photo Metadata Working Group, and they have already adjusted their standards on request from our working group towards a more GLAM-friendly adoption. The ISO refers to the International Standardization for Organization that is independent, non-governmental, international. The ISO is an independent, non-governmental international organization that develops standards and publish them. The ISO 19264 describes a method for analyzing imaging system quality in the area of cultural heritage imaging. The technical committee responsible for this standard supporting the working group and will implement specifications on the technical metadata in their upcoming new practice standard. And now I'll just briefly go with some user case, and we are looking here at the screenshot from a collection published by the University of Oxford, showing the IIIF universal viewer, where the end user is getting the content information. We will invoke the content credential, this icon showed earlier, and the information about the imaging quality will fit best here under the set of information headers. Most important, easily accessible for the end user. Maybe you can see in this slide in the middle here, this is information of digitization information. This is already something that the University of Oxford is publishing. There's another IIIF viewer, the Mirador, and this is the same with the content from the University of Oxford, and also showing the information icon where the header should be placed. To best illustrate why imaging quality is relevant, I've made this comparison where the same archive original is captured with two different systems, and their result files are placed on top of each other, and by using the curtain tool, you can see that the information is lost on the system used on the left side compared with the system used on the right side. There is no imaging manipulation, and this is real-life examples from our own collection. The capture is done back in 2015. This is one of the reasons of my engagement of this topic. We need to communicate the relevant technical metadata for the end user to make sure that they can trust that the physical original is true to the digital surrogate. In 2022, the Digital Archives platform for the National Archives of Norway conducted a proof of concept in embedding technical process metadata from the image capture process to the digital object file, with the goal of making the process metadata independent and future-proof. The application produced an XMP file to store the metadata in the content file itself, and a JSON sidecar file with the readable image capture quality analysis. We are now working towards the goal of implementing a new schema for this in the IPTC Photo Metadata Center. And there's an international consensus for the importance of storing and displaying this important metadata. The community-driven IIIF community that is aligned with the UN Development Goals number 17, partnership for the goals, is really promising to fulfill this goal. The working group is in need of input before we can develop the right set of tools for potential implementation into the IIIF framework. Our next step is to continue the work started for a proof of concept for this implementation. And we have been in contact with the IIIF cookbook community calls and described the use of embedded metadata either as an XMP and or in the IPTC photo metadata working standard, supported by JSON sidecar files, are already established. And during these days at the conference, I realized how important JSON is for the IIIF. Please make contact with the working group by scanning this QR code. You will access our webpage with contact information and also upcoming presentations on the topic. There is also a dynamic Google Doc that we also wanted feedbacks on. And we're working on making a large-scale feedback survey. That's ongoing work. And by that, thank you for your attention.
I thought I was getting a helper today, but it didn't happen. So bear with me. But up next, we have Brigitte Vézina, the Director of Policy and Open Culture, and Dee Harris, the Director of Open Culture Storytelling at Creative Commons, presenting Overcoming Barriers to Access to Museum Collections in the Digital Environment.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. So my name is Brigitte Vézina, and I'm the Director of Policy and Open Culture. This is my colleague Dee.
Just call me Dee.
Yeah. We're really thrilled to be here. It's our first time at IIIF event. Thank you so much to the program committee for having us. We're really excited to talk to you about a very new initiative at Creative Commons that I think will be of interest to many of you in this room. And so, yeah, we're really thrilled to be talking to you about a coalition that we just started that aims to facilitate more equitable access to heritage in the digital environment.
So before we get started, if you aren't familiar with Creative Commons, I'll give you like the 3,000 level view. So Creative Commons was founded in the early 2000s. We're about 25 years old. As a way to empower people to grow and sustain the commons through legal tools. So we have a suite of licenses that standardize the way that you can grant permissions to content. So ranging from public domain all the way to share alike. It just allows you a flexible range of options for creators to use their work. So just like IIIF provides the technical infrastructure for you to share things, Creative Commons licenses allows users to easily see if a content can be used and how that can be used for sharing. But we're not here to talk about the licenses. They're just a part of what Creative Commons do. But we're here to talk about cultural heritage in the public domain. Too often, cultural heritage in the public domain, it should belong to everybody, but it's restricted. There are barriers that we're going to talk about today, and that's some of the challenges that our initiative, TEREC, is here to address. So Brigitte's going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Yes, so the initiative is called TEREC, and that stands for Towards a Recommendation on Open Cultural Heritage. And our goal is to form this global coalition to really push UNESCO, which is the UN Organization for Science, Education, and Culture, to establish an international standard to facilitate more equitable access to heritage in the public domain. So you may know that UNESCO has already adopted 2 open recommendations. So one in 2019, which is the OER recommendation on open educational resources, that established the criteria for what it means to be an open educational resource and really promotes its use as a tool to enhance access to education. And 2 years later, in 2021, UNESCO adopted the recommendation on open science. In the midst of COVID, it was adopted in a record time of 2 years, which for an international negotiation process is like a blink of an eye. And it just seems like the next logical step for UNESCO, given these 3 areas of work, would be to have open access recognized as a way to facilitate a connection with culture, with heritage. And this is what we're trying to promote. So really trying to convince UNESCO and its member states that it would be really worthwhile to have this international instrument to inspire cultural heritage institutions to provide access to their collections in more open ways. We know that there are many barriers. We'll go into a little bit more detail about what they are, even for cultural heritage that is in the public domain, so free of copyright. We know that the public domain means that it's free for everyone to use without any limitations, and yet there are many barriers. And Dee's going to speak a little bit more about this, but we really want to make sure that we have a major impact to really enable this digital access in an equitable way for everyone.
So just so that we're all on the same page, and I don't mean a page with a watermark or a copyright notice, public domain, we just wanted to give you a definition. So public domain materials in the public domain should remain in the public domain. That is not always the case, as we are well aware. When there's no right, when the rights are not clear, people don't know where to go. They, these images, these artifacts in the public domain, may be restricted for access, or there may be a technical barrier on it or an institutional barrier on it. So again, that's part of what we're trying to address, so we just wanted to lay that out. So, next slide. What we're really talking about is our goal, and it's very simple: open access to the public domain materials. So cultural heritage institutions should be able to provide public domain materials legally, digitally, and clearly labeled. But open access isn't just about putting a JPEG on the image. It is about removing the layers of friction that block reuse and engagement. And so that's our global call to action. We're advocating for a shared global policy to avoid these, patchwork guidelines across borders, and then move together more consistently with a policy that is global, that is understandable, that has the shared values of our community.
Yeah. So, like I said, if it's in the public domain, it means that there's no more copyright. That means that people should be able to access it and use it and reuse it in all sorts of transformative ways without having to ask for copyright permission. What we see, however, and this is very prevalent in the field of cultural heritage, is that institutions will digitize their physical artifacts and then claim copyright on the digital surrogate. So a faithful reproduction of a centuries-old painting or a very old piece of, an artifact that is thousands of years old is clearly out of copyright, but somehow, when it gets into a digital form, magically copyright appears. That's not how it works. If it's in the public domain in analog form, it should stay in the public domain in its physical form. The simple act of digitization does not create an additional layer of copyright. And so what we see is that a lot of institutions are releasing their digital surrogates with a copyright claim, sometimes with a very restrictive license, and even sometimes with a Creative Commons license, I think with good intentions, wanting to share it more openly, but that is legally inaccurate. Because there is no copyright in this digital asset, you cannot apply a copyright license to share it. And so what we're trying to convey as a message is if it's a copy, a faithful reproduction of something that's in the public domain, you cannot share it with a CC license. You can share it with a public domain tool like CC0 or the public domain mark. And we are seeing these kinds of barriers all over the world. So copyright claims with restrictive licenses, copyright claims with open licenses, which is equally wrong. We're seeing also economic barriers, so access to an image or downloading an image that can cost in the hundreds of euros or pounds or dollars for PhD students who need access to these images for their work. PhD students unable to publish their thesis because there are some non-commercial restrictions on the images. So we're seeing kind of absurd situations where access is being denied on the basis of copyright or image management schemes. And we're trying to say that these barriers are unnecessary. They hinder a meaningful connection with heritage, and we should get rid of them. One of the categories of barriers that I thought would be most interesting for this community are what we call technological barriers. So they are free of copyright, they're maybe sometimes free to download, but they have some kind of technological protection layer that prevents full reuse of those works. So sometimes you cannot download the image, you can only view it. Sometimes you can download the image, but only as a thumbnail or with a watermark. Sometimes you are unable to make a copy of it. You can only download one and cannot remix it. Sometimes the metadata is incorrect or unavailable, and that hinders the quality of the file itself. So all these are restrictions on public access to what we think shouldn't be restricted.
So really, again, the goal here is open access to the public domain. It's very clear that that's where we're headed. And those are the things and the values and the principles that TARIC is instigating and going towards. And our journey's been interesting. It's been, it started back in 2021, and Brigitte's gonna give you a little bit about how we got here.
Yeah, very quickly. So 2021, the midst of COVID again, so many museums and libraries and institutions having to shut their doors to physical access, a big realization of the potential of audience that you can reach in the digital world. And we started realizing that even though the potential was there and the capacity was there, there were still these barriers preventing cultural heritage institutions reaching out to their audiences in the online environment. So we first did a kind of copyright scan of what would be the copyright law reforms necessary to make sure that heritage institutions are not hampered by copyright and can release their collections as freely and openly as possible. We distilled that into a call to action to policymakers, really narrowing it down to 5 things that policymakers should change in their laws, in their copyright law. And I won't go into detail, unfortunately, but if you're interested, happy to talk more about it. And then we organized community gatherings to really test the appetite. Is there energy in our community to really go up to UNESCO and say, we need this international instrument? Turns out the community said yes. It was a very dynamic yes. And so that brought us to last year, at the end of last year, where we formally established the coalition, TARIC. And so we're a few months in now, and that's where we are. These are our current members. We're up to almost 60 now. IIIF is, I'm very happy to say, one of the founding members. Yeah, thank you so much. And you're all welcome to join. It's really an attempt to be global, representative, diverse, and really bring all these different perspectives from various parts of the world, just to represent also the diversity of the UNESCO membership and bring all these experiences to bear to demonstrate the need for this instrument. So our strategy is to go global to local in order to go back to global again. So we're encouraging coalition growth. So like I said, feel free to come for more information if you think that this could be something for you. The coalition is developing an open heritage statement, which is going to be a list of values and principles and the things that we think should appear in a UNESCO recommendation to really clarify what needs to be done and how that could really improve access to heritage in the public domain. We are doing this through a global advocacy strategy, but through local advocacy circles. So we have various regions forming circles to convince their own governments to bring this issue up to UNESCO in Paris. And then hopefully once the statement is published, we hope that it will enter the formal cycle of norm setting within the UNESCO process. And we continue to support CHI, so cultural heritage institutions, with capacity building and helping them in their own internal advocacy to make sure that the management layer is also bought in.
So when we started this project, it was about a year ago that we devised the plan for it. I said to myself, how are we going to do this? I mean, really, it's quite a task, because normally these standard setting instruments bubble up through the UNESCO system. And this was really about the community coming together. Your community, our communities, cultural heritage communities, coming together and going, these are the values that we want for our work, our content. And so it did start as a local conversation, and then it became a global conversation. And quite honestly, the coalition is very much a global conversation about what they want the future to look like. And so the way that we're doing this is really through a very standard ladder of engagement kind of thing, you know, starting with this awareness, which is part of what we're here to tell you about, awareness and interest. But really going into, we have about a year that we want to see if we can move this into the UNESCO process, moving somebody up the ladder of engagement. Is this something that aligns with your values? Is this something that would help your work? Is this something that you believe is the right thing to do globally? And so the advocacy circles, we have about 8 countries that are forming those right now. They're going to take this message, localize it, using adaptive content framework. They're going to, you know, have modular content. They're going to be talking locally about their policies, their stakeholders, their values, what really matters to the institutions in those countries. And, you know, with the goal of engaging and leading and moving this to the next level. So again, it started with a conversation, which I think is really lovely. And it's just about this move that's a collective, just like the IIIF community. You're very much a collective of people that really believe in something, and then you come together and make change. So that's essentially the same kind of alignment we're trying to go for. So, you know, if you feel that this is something that you align with, we have a statement of commitment that is basically just, you know, this is where we are. These are our values and principles, and this is what we're trying to do. Please join us. Organizations are welcome to join. Again, we have circles forming in different countries to take this to the next level, to have a conversation with those people that are decision makers that can take this to the next level. So there's a bit.ly at the top that you can go visit the website. Our emails are below if you have any questions. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to questions if you have any. Thank you.
Up next, we have Hembo Pagi from Tallinn University presenting what IIIF lessons learned from the Digital Livonia project.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. As said, I'm from Tallinn University, where I was working with a project called Digital Livonia. And my role there was a software architect and technical project manager. And my presentation is kind of reflection of those 5 years. It's a 5 years project. This is our final year, and like how things went, what I learned, and what we did. And IIIF has been kind of the thread going through the project from very early on. And you might ask what Livonia is. It's the area nowadays we know as Estonia, as well as northern part of Latvia. And our project is focused. It's a history project, and it's focused on medieval Livonia, and work with the resources. And the main kind of idea or the reason behind the project was that all those resources are really kind of scattered around in different institutions, museums. Some of them are digitized, some of them are, or most of them are not. And even the ones which are digitized, they might are digitized as images, not as kind of computer readable or searchable documents. And also the search functions of those collections available are usually very limited, and also the metadata, or kind of the quality or the way how they are collected is very varies in different collections. So basically our aim was to address all those issues, so we created a setup or to aggregate those different resources into one platform, and that's again where the IIIF comes in, and digitize more materials which were not digitized before, and make them searchable as well. So we built content search for some content search API, and saying that from very early on, the kind of initial assumption of the project was that this is not a software development project, so it's historic research with very kind of, as my role would be to cover all the kind of the technical parts. In reality, it didn't really work out like that. As originally, we were really planning to use some out-of-the-box system with all the IIIF kind of support and so on. But we ended up really building our own like web application and used Directus, like a seamless content management system for our kind of backend, and that kind of enabled us to kind of extend the system for our needs, and it has a very great kind of API. It's extendable very easily as well. So what did we build? As said, the main aim was to bring together those different resources. So we had Tallinn University Academic Library. So they did the digitization work for us. They also created a IIIF endpoint and for their own collection system. So all the manuscripts and the data that they provide are accessible in our website via IIIF without user actually understanding that the data comes from a different institution. And we got data in a kind of hard drive from National Archives, and so yeah, we kind of collected as much as we could and made it available. And our researchers, there are historians working on a project with the different topics. So they created their own kind of databases or based on their interest. And as said, the main kind of challenge for researchers is to find the content. So we created our website also in a way that, or a web application, that it's kind of easily kind of searchable, and it goes, even the very simple search goes through the content search if it's available. And we also work with the transcribers. So one of our researchers for her PhD, she does working with manuscripts, but there are some two other researchers also working with manuscripts, but their digital skills are a bit maybe not limited, but Word is their main tool. So we use transcribers basically to align their Word documents with images, so to make it kind of nicely searchable and viewable in our website. And we have a web map output as well. So this is not to do with IIIF, but as we have archaeologist in a project, he works with the kind of data which has coordinates as well. I think the community aspect has been there has been lots of discussion about that already. Like yesterday, there are many presentations it came through, and even today. For me, I think as we started in a COVID time where everything was kind of locked, and the people were kind of separated from each other. So this kind of digital community gave me lots of support, and when it comes to IIIF or the directors as well as a community, so the input and the help I got from there, I think the only reason I'm here today is because of that. As like when you start working with something where you don't know much about, and you have a very active and helpful community, it really it motivates you a lot. As otherwise I really felt a bit alone on this project as a one kind of technical person in a along with other kind of historians. I am really kind of happy that we have this kind of very great community here. And this community is not only for receiving, it's for giving. So we kind of set up a project with Ruben to create this kind of self-contained Docker image, which does both the transcoding and delivery, and it works over a REST API. And as for our needs, we need an image API. We don't have it at the moment. So when you go to our website, you see that sometimes images that are very slow to appear. It's because you have to download the full image before it's kind of zoomable. But soon we're able to use that nice setup, and it's CMS agnostic, which means that you can set it up easily with any kind of content management or collection management system. In our case, it's the directives, where it's very easy to set up like pipelines or flows, as they call it. So when the image is uploaded, request is sent to our Docker, where image is then converted or transcoded and made available for a viewer. And the plan is to make it also to work with S3 storage as our own storage solution is based on that. So I think it's kind of a good like something which IIP image is missing at the moment. So we kind of can get it in a kind of next level in that sense. And so what were the main kind of the learning points for me? As I said, I was working with historians whose main tool maybe for data collection is either a Word process or a Word document or a spreadsheet. And for me, I really tried to force them to take like everything out from technology and make very complicated data model for them. So basically, I end up with very angry faces and very messy data sets. So I think for me, one of the key learnings, even though I mean, yeah, I know it, but again, you have to do it like and to experience it like many times. That don't change people, change tools, and that I guess it's the same for relationships. That you can't change other people, you only can change yourself. So now, basically, I'm happy all that whatever way they give data to me, I make sure that I convert it into the way that it's usable for me and for kind of understandable for computer as well. So there's kind of messiness of research in a way, and the kind of the strictness what kind of I need, or the structure what I need in my work, they can be easily kind of combined. It's just something to keep mind and remind constantly myself. And maybe the one thing we also really underestimated at the beginning of the project, the digital kind of the needs and the digital literacy of our researchers. As if you run a digital infrastructure project inside the humanities research, it's something to kind of think about how you communicate and how you kind of make your kind of digital goals understandable for people who maybe don't really care about that. And of course, again, this community aspect, it's really kind of I kept in my life in general. It's important for me, but then this kind of a digital development of and also the IIIF as a standards community. It's something like which really it's good difficult to even explain. It's kind of emotionally important for me, and it helps me to kind of thrive further. Our project officially ends at the end of this year, and the website dl.edu.e it is accessible, so you can go and browse. There are things which are not working, but I hope by the end of the year it's all nice and beautiful. And we are preparing a follow-up project which to continue to develop the platform and also to get more data. There are also already some ideas there, and projects are kind of written. And I leave you with a very nice quote from the world longest study by Harvard University about happiness, and that the people who have the warmest connections with other people, they are the happiness, the most happy and live longest. So I think here we have a good possibility to really do that, to build those good relationships and live ever after. So thank you.
are going to welcome Scott Renton. And he is presenting, I gotta read it because I'm not going to say it right. Flitting, the digital collections overhaul at the University of Edinburgh.
Hi there. All good.
I know it's going to tap here.
Right, the first thing I should probably say is forgive the accent. I'm Scott Renton. I'm Systems Architect at the Digital Library at the University of Edinburgh. And I'd like to start by giving a big shout out to Lucy Pennington, because she did an awful lot of the work, and I'm taking the credit for her here. She's presenting later on, and I'm not going to make her do this as well. Okay, we haven't presented at IIIF for a while because we've been doing a digital systems overhaul. We've been trying to improve the overall landscape, and part of that has been changing our dams. You've got to break a few eggs to make an omelette, and as a result, I think we've kind of gone back to foundations a little bit. So we don't really have anything innovative to show you as such just now, but it's more about where we're trying to get to. So I've decided to tell this story through the rather thin analogy of a house move. I've used the term flitting, which is an Old Norse thing that came into Scots. It means to move house. It doesn't mean anything more sinister than that. We're not talking Highland clearances or forcible removal. We're doing this by choice. So the family home, we have used Luna for our image provision and discovery since 2004. It's very much where our images have grown up and matured, and they've had some wonderful times. I could have done something very lazy here and drawn a sort of dilapidated house in need of repair for contrast, but I'm not going to do that because it would grossly misrepresent Luna, which is a very sleek, modern application which does what it does very, very well, and it's been very, very good for us, so I'm not going to do that. Quite simply, we went through a tender process, and something else won out, so it's certainly not to denigrate anything else. And Luna itself really bolstered our knowledge of IIIF. In 2016, Luna took on IIIF, and pretty much overnight all 200,000 of our images became interoperable, which was great. The thing with Luna, I suppose, is that the image is the atomic level, so every single image has its own manifest, but there isn't really the concept of volumes as such, unless you're going out with our standard practices. So we got quite good at sort of coding round the Luna IIIF and building manifests which would sort of extract canvases and push things together so we could work at volume level. And this informed a lot of the work we did with our collection sites for museums and prototypes for archives and rare books, which sort of informs what we do today. It also worked very well for kind of more bespoke things like the Mahabharata scroll and the Lyle website, which Lucy will be talking about later on. So where are we going? We're hitching all our possessions and sticking them in a rickety old car there, taking it across America, but doing the opposite of the Beverly Hillbillies by going eastwards. Luna's based in Malibu, and we're going to New York. And the reason for that is that we're moving to Archipelago Commons repository software, which is out of the Metropolitan Library in New York City of the Møre developers. Now, Archipelago has grown up with GLAM and IIIF at its heart as founding principles. So it's not something that's had it shoehorned in, and it's not been reverse engineered. And so that means that we're on a very solid footing, I think, in that respect. IIIF is everywhere in Archipelago. You'll see the Mirador viewer on every page. You'll find downloads for manifests in 2.13, Cantaloupe server sitting behind it, and because it's Drupal based and configurable through Twig, we could work in our own, should we need to, but we won't, because they'll do it for us, the version 4 manifest standard over there, and the ability to use 3D. And beyond that, it works very well sort of in a kind of linked data sort of model using some very modern techniques, which I'll talk about shortly. So just a little bit about any house move requiring agents and lawyers and a lot of planning. If you're moving 350,000 images, you've got to sort of know what you're doing and have it all sort of set out with the right people working on it. So just on the sort of project setup, we've done this across 3 projects. The first one, the platform implementation, was where we sort of designed the overall data structure, rolled out some sort of usable but vanilla instances of Archipelago that we could just drop content into, and building the ingest APIs and the media ingest tools. The second project, which would be starting running concurrently with that, would be the migration itself. So the migration is very much underway, but there was a lot of work needed to be done concurrently for analysing and preparing data, because I'll come to that shortly, but there's certainly a lot of challenges with that. And then the third project has been about the user experience and getting the basically things to look the way we want it, and we've got a lot of UX testing involved in that. And you know, there's been a lot of collaboration involved here, and you can sort of see there the sorts of different stakeholders that have been involved in this. Different types of expertise have been required. A lot of heritage collection staff, business agent staff, as well as the core project team. So to take the first project, we'll break it down into the first bit's the floor plan for any new house. You have to have your windows and doors all in the right place, because it's pretty hard to get them in once you've moved in, or change them once you've moved in. And for that, I'm talking about the sort of collection structure and the data structure. And this is very much hierarchical. It works off effectively a reflection of how the collections sort of exist in the back-end catalogues from which the data is actually created. So we'll have quite high-level collections that when drilled down to a volume-level record, which utilises Archipelago's digital objects collections entity, and that will come directly from the back-end catalogue. Beneath that, we'll have page-level children digital objects, which will store golden copy metadata, which won't be anywhere else but Archipelago, but that does allow you to search on what's specifically on the page, and then media will be attached to that. The other thing to think of when you're planning your house here is the massive amounts of cupboard and loft space, I think, that we need in terms of storage, because we've got big TIFFs here, sort of 200 meg a go. We're doing it all on-prem flash storage, so you know we have to be prepared for the scalability and getting it big enough to do that. But Archipelago does allow that through Minio. So let's turn on the taps and get the water flowing into the house. This is all about the actual relationships and the ingest of content from other systems. We have never been in a position with Luna to really be able to keep our dams and our catalogues in sync, and that's very much what we're trying to do here. That sync is not a pun, by the way. But you'll see there's 4 taps there for archive space for archives, Alma for rare books, Vernon for collections of the museum's flavour, and Gooby for Nets files and digitised content. And basically our aim is to keep all of that in sync. So to do that, Lucy's built a nice front end for our digital collection support officer to trigger data loads. And that will be as simple as providing either a digital ID from Gooby or a CSV exported from Luna and pushing that content through. What will happen is it will take an identifier from the back end, it will pull in the back end record, and then it will get the associated media. Now we're doing this using the Archipelago JSON API. Apparently we're the first people really to do this, so we're having to document quite feverishly as we go. And where it ends up is in Archipelago's very own JSON blob, which is known to the world as the strawberry field. Now I don't know how much the Beatles actually influenced the development of Archipelago, but this metadata standard agnostic setup allows data to come together from all sorts of different sources. I know that metadata crosswalks have caused me many a hard day's night, and I like to think that we can work it out with archipelago awareness to carry that particular weight. So we've got the archipelago side of the API, but we also need to make sure that we're using robust APIs from the native catalogue systems, meaning, and to be honest, that's stuff that we're very familiar with. We've been working with the archive space, Alma and Vernon APIs for quite some time now. So getting the keys, this is just a simple thing about rolling out the platform and just saying, okay, we have a vanilla, we have a setup that meets all of the sort of structural things that we need to do, but it doesn't look particularly fancy yet. Not to knock the archipelago out the box front end, which is perfectly nice. We wanted to make it look a bit more of our own. So that's where the kind of decoration project comes in, and you know, just turning it into your own house. So that's applying the sort of library and university look and feel. It's going through and ensuring that you've got all your facets and advanced search fields and these sorts of things all in place. And running some UX testing to ensure that the system is doing what users would expect, and you know, and having them understand what it's about, shaping it in that way. So that's more work that poor overworked Lucy is doing at the moment. So the next bit, I suppose, is the migration itself, or the kind of roadmap to getting this stuff complete. We have a couple of different ways of getting the content across America, from California to New York. So our first bit was the Gooby-driven content. Now, we took Gooby a couple of years ago, I think, inspired, by workshops at the Göttingen conference, I suppose. And that stuff has been pretty easy to move because it's how we do things now, really. So it all kind of fits with processes that everybody understands. There's not a lot of extraneous data that we have to kind of question. So we've managed to get 50,000 records in quite quickly from that flavour. Soft launch is in a couple of months, which will be based upon the Gooby content, any extra bits we managed to get across, and the look and feel project completing. We've then got the slightly tougher stuff, which is 20 years worth of things getting into Luna from evolving processes and practices. And there's a lot more kind of preparatory work that needs to be done there, and a lot more decisions that need to be made when you come in. So we've got a longer time scale to get the CSV stuff that's come from Luna. But even this content is managed. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Who's Outtakes album, Odds and Sods, but that's what I would define the hardest bunch that we'll be doing at the end, and that's content that's not managed at all by our digitization team. It's come from other sources, and we have to get that across as well if we're going to be able to move dams. And then hopefully by next September we'll be closed and moved over. So we do also need to think about the things that we need to do to get switch off, I suppose. And the real change of address is something that everybody who moves into a new house probably has to deal with. We've not really been great at sort of abstracting away from the Luna URL. We've been using it for image API stuff, especially in our collections websites and to an extent in our manifest. So we've got a bit of a challenge ahead of us to make sure that everything's pointing in the right place, whether that's going to be using resolvers such as ARCs for persistent identifiers, or Fregaria, which Archipelago uses by default, or whether there's some horrendously large Apache rewrite file something in front of it. We have a few decisions to make and a bit of work to do to get this all working, but you know, that's all just part of the process. So we can now imagine ourselves in a new environment. Nice view out the window, that's all the different views of different types of content that Twig and Drupal allow you to do. We've got the sort of flexibility of the system where we're going to be able to store 3D and AV and WAG files and things like that. We've got the overall sort of ability to modify the house at a low cost, because customisations that we can do ourselves that we couldn't maybe have done before. And you know, the nice secure house where you know, you're behind sort of standard prices, like load balances and that kind of thing. And then we have to talk about the neighbours, of course. We will be moving into an open source community, which we weren't before. It was always quite a hard sell when you came to a IIIF conference to people saying, how did you get up and running? And you know, to say, well, it's great, but you know, there's a big financial outlay to get there. So now moving into this sort of open source community with not just for the help that you get from the community with development, but also doing IIIF properly, and you know, hoping that our friends and neighbours will come and take our adventures. You know, I think we are seeing the places to look for assistance from the community. The Google group and the Slack channel are massively helpful, but nothing is more helpful than Diego and Alison, who have been immensely supportive and really spearhead the community in that respect. So that's pretty much where we've got to. That's next slide. So any new house is an ongoing project. My brother-in-law is not happy with having at least a new wall to put up somewhere. And there are lots of things that once we've got the sort of basic archipelago in place, we want to do. So thinking of customising new features, ensuring that the whole upload process is seamless. Google will allow that. And then things like, you know, pushing on digital scholarships, making data available in bulk to researchers, and tackling the full collections. We've still got collection sites up, but you know, we have the non-digitised content in there, so moving away from that. More maybe visualisations, reporting, maps, those kinds of things, and then linking it to a digital preservation repository, which is also going to be an instance archipelago, but that's an entirely separate presentation. So thanks for listening. If anybody is thinking about you know, investigating archipelago and wants to get involved in, please